Welcome to Here Where You Belong, your go-to podcast for exploring belonging with your host and belonging expert, Dia Irby. We are thrilled to have you join us. Together, we'll dive into the depths of what it means for each of us to find our own place in the world, whether it's within our communities, our relationships, or within ourselves. Today's episode is meant to inspire, uplift, and remind you that no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. So grab a cozy spot and settle in. Welcome to Here Where You Belong.
Hello, awesome belongers. Welcome home to Here Where You Belong podcast. I'm Dia, your host, and today I have an amazing guest who has overcome and made a great life out of what he's overcome, and I'm not going to tell you yet. But first, let me introduce you to Dennis Szymanski. Hey, Dennis.
Hi, Dia. How are you?
I'm great. Listen, I have so much to tell you about this guy. He's a native New Yorker who has found his slice of paradise down on the coast of North Carolina. His professional background is focused on semiconductor technology, where he holds a PhD in materials science and engineering, and he's way up there, and is currently working as a product engineer for a British compound semiconductor manufacturer. Wow, there's a lot we can unpack there. He has been a Toastmaster for just over 2 years. And a side note, that is where I met him, competing against him. And he won, I might say, and has begun to cultivate a side hustle as a public speaker and author. To date, Dennis has presented his anecdotes as a lifelong stutterer, there's that overcoming, to multiple statewide speech, language, and hearing associations. In just the last couple of weeks, he has begun to build an online platform for his speaking with the goal of bringing more awareness to stuttering and stutterers. He's also working on a children's book centered around semiconductor technology. He's able to reduce that to the common mind and hopes to release that by the end of summer. When he's not working or speaking, he enjoys time to do work around the house, the beach, and all associated water sports, disc golf, reading, and playing the trumpet. And there's a clue about something else about his belonging story. Welcome, Dennis. So glad to have you here with us today.
Dia, it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for the introduction. And yes, as you said, we met doing Toastmasters together. We are fellow Toastmasters at the district conference. So happy that it's come full circle and we're here on the podcast together today.
Absolutely. Well, as you know, this is a podcast about belonging. And I invite my guest on to tell their story, their belonging story, in whatever way you want to tell it and whatever part of belonging you want to tell it. So the mic is yours. Dennis, take it away.
Well, to try and maybe tie up some loose ends at the very lengthy introduction, I didn't realize it was that long when I wrote it, but kind of makes me appreciate all the things I try to do in a day, in a lifetime. My belonging story, I think, has to start with my family. I come from a very large but tight-knit family. I am a New Yorker, as you said. I grew up 60 miles east of Manhattan, so Ellis Island was right next door. So I am Irish, Swedish, German, Polish, and Italian. You name it. I have a lot of European nationality. But my mother and father, especially as it relates to my stutter, were right on it, right on the ball, identifying that this is a potential area for me to improve my fluency. And I say that because it's unfortunately not many people in general are aware of stuttering, the initial signs, what to look for, and all of these things. And then you take it a step down, and parents, very rightfully so, look at their child as perfect. And that's true. I'm not here to say that. We are all perfectly imperfect. Something I picked up on and I love to share that sentiment, because so many people don't want to get help for their child who is stuttering because they see it as an imperfection. But I say this because it is the start of my belonging journey, not just belonging to a group, whether that group was lifelong friends, whether that group was a band, whether that group was my family, or just belonging within myself. It all stemmed from my stutter. And to have that tight-knit family that started to support me both externally by reaching out to speech pathologists, but internally at home by speaking a little slower, making less stressful speaking situations. I say that because I notice that my stutter a lot has to do with stress. So if I can minimize my stress, be it external stress, internal stress, that stress can manifest from speaking quickly. That stress can manifest itself from being in a difficult conversation, from being sick. Even to this day, I still stutter when I'm sick, almost uncontrollably. And my belonging story, again, is defined by my stutter because, as I said in the intro, over the past few weeks, months, I've started to get out and share my story and speak at different speech, language, and hearing associations. I was presenting at the New York State and North Carolina State conferences back in March of 2025. I began an online platform just to speak, to show the world that stutterers can communicate. Stutterers get out and share life's messages just like everybody else, experience life just like everybody else. And so that has really not only solidified my belonging story in all the groups that I found myself in, my lifelong friends, my bands that I played in, still keep in touch with, my colleagues at work. It's all, and probably most importantly, myself, belonging to myself, has been embracing that imperfection. And for those who aren't watching, I put that in big air quotes, to make who I am today and who I've surrounded myself with and who I belong to was defined by this stutter that I perceived historically in my life as a negative thing. I've been around many people that try and hide a stutter. I want my belonging story, my story in general, to say that that imperfection, again in quotes, might actually define where you belong externally and within yourself.
Mm-hmm. You hit on the point that I think I keep coming back to almost with every guest, is that you have to belong to yourself first before
Yes.
you can belong anywhere else. If you're not being authentic and belonging to yourself, then who you're bringing to a gathering or to a relationship is a false you, and they may be belonging to your false you, but not you. So you have to belong to yourself first. At what point did your parents realize, or when did your stuttering show up? Was it just right at the very beginning when you were learning to speak?
Yes, it was. I say it, I'm a lifelong stutterer. I do not personally have a memory of speaking without having the stutter in the background. So around 3, 4 years old, because I should say many children do stutter as they're figuring out their kind of linguistic devices and all these types of things. It's when it continues to adulthood that it's relatively rare. I think the last stat that I read was about 3 million people in the US stutter. So
Adults?
3 million people. That was total population last I checked. Now, so yeah, they I think I began speech therapy in kindergarten, in school, and then between first and second grade is when I went to a private practice, external, outside of school, and that was just more access to resources. Just like any kind of therapy, you want to find what fits, find what works, and that was part of that journey. So yeah, going back to your original question, it was around 3 or 4 years old when it was initially like, hey, let's look more into this with little Dennis.
do you feel like you reached a point where you had it under control, or is it something you're still conscious of that you need to constantly work on?
I smiled because it's something that I have to constantly work on. I will be a stutterer until the day I die. It's that simple. And to draw a parallel to folks out there that aren't stutterers or don't know, I am actually drawing it very much a parallel to an addictive mindset, to an addiction.
When someone says, I'm an alcoholic.
Correct. So if you ask the question, hey, you might not have had a drink in 25 years, but are you an alcoholic? Their answer, if they're serious, is yes. Because once an addict, always an addict. It's always something you have to work on, have to remind yourself, maybe not to pick up a drink, but for me, I have to remind myself, speak slowly.
Slow down.
Correct.
It's like being dyslexic. You're always going to be dyslexic, I guess, or nearsighted or farsighted. Or you can have laser surgery, but.
Right. I mean, it's very much like these things that you say. And I just want to, offer a caveat. Going back to the point of, what kind of works for you with therapy, speaking slower works for me. But that is not the silver bullet for me, nor anybody else who stutters. It would be the first thing speaking to another person who stutters is it manifests itself differently in each person, and how that person deals with it is slightly different. Maybe somebody isn't as sensitive to their rate of speech as I am, because potentially my background as a New Yorker, being from Long Island, I want to speak a million miles a minute because I need to get every word out. But I have a lot more to go back on, whereas somebody else, maybe a breathing technique might be more impactful for them. Mm-hmm. So to again come back to your original question, I am a stutterer for life. It's something I constantly manage, constantly work on in my professional life, in my personal life, and even when I talk to myself.
That's an interesting question. Do you stutter in your thoughts?
No.
I mean, if you're talking to yourself just in your mind, yeah, you don't.
No, I will vocalize talking to myself a lot of the time. As you saw in my speech about Rocky with Toastmasters, I will speak with a dog affect sometimes, but essentially that's just talking to myself, right?
Right. Yes. I don't know. Maybe your dog talks back.
I think his tongue's a little too thin.
Okay. So, let's go to your semiconductor. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Work. How did you find that you belong in that career?
I love that you phrased that question that way, because I've told this story. I was actually just talking to a coworker about it, but belonging makes it sound so much less binary, like I'm used to engineering speak, ones and zeros, rather than, how'd you get in your career? So I've always been an engineer right off the top. I've taken my toys apart. You can ask both of my parents. They probably had to buy a lot of toys for me, again, because I broke them, couldn't put them back together. I remember distinctly taking apart a remote controlled car in my dad's basement and not being able to put it back together. So anyway, I always knew I had that engineering mind. My mother's in IT. She's been a computer programmer doing something with computers since the 80s, since before there were mice, all these types of things. So when I started to think, what do I want to do? My dad cut his teeth in the insurance industry. Can't really do a lot of engineering mind there, but IT, okay. Now we're on to something. My first day working in my mother's office, in the company that she works for. It's a small company. The boss sat me down and gave me about 10 computers, 10 different computers. None of them worked.
Okay, wait, how old were you?
13, 14-ish. None of them worked. And he said, make one that worked or that works. So, okay. So by the end of the day, I had one that worked. Took a motherboard out from this one, put the hard drive in from that one, took the RAM chip from that guy, And it was a Frankenstein computer, stuff falling out, but
it worked.
And so that triggered my engineering mind. Well, if I can put these pieces together to make a working computer, what are these pieces that I just cobbled together made up of? The answer? Semiconductors. That's it. So that led me down the path of, as I went through high school, I took robotics classes, more engineering classes, mathematics classes, and got ready for college, taking college classes just at large. So I didn't have to have electives going into school because I knew I would have an engineering track, something with computers. So I didn't want to have to take English 101, you know, and history 101 and all of that. So I initially thought I was going to be in computer engineering. And that is a little higher level, you know, so it's more, from my understanding, you're engineering computer systems and maybe how they work together. But I was in physics class, and a friend of mine came in and said, hey, have you heard about this really cool semiconductor college up in Albany in New York, where I'm from? Well, the state where I'm from. And the college being close to home, about 3 hours from Long Island, still wanting to get off the island to kind of spread my wings a little bit, I was like, you know what, let's check this place out. And it was amazing, Dia. The collaboration with universities and industry and this incredible technology that is semiconductors, and how it's all coming together to build that next generation computer that maybe the Dennis in 30 years is 13 and comes and puts a bunch of parts together. Maybe he'll have that same thought. But I started college when I was 17 in semiconductors, and I never looked back. It's only gotten more deep dive.
Belonged.
I did. And so that is the very long story of how I found that I belonged in the semiconductor industry. And now, 4 years in, I've taken the fact that I've always loved commercial business, that kind of stuff. I come from a family of serial entrepreneurs. But I like that technology. I like that engineering. So I've tried to marry them. And that's where I come at now, where essentially I work with our customers and I work with our engineering team to engineer the best product that we can give to our customer. So that's from little engineering, Dennis, in my dad's basement, all the way to the guy that sits here before you as a semiconductor product engineer. So
with a doctorate in semiconductor engineering. What's your doctorate in?
Materials science and engineering. So that's what semiconductors fall under the umbrella, would be material. Okay. It's a material, right? Just like rubber would fall under material science and engineering. So like Goodyear tires, things like this.
Right. So quickly before our break, the children's book about semiconductor, what inspired you, and why would or what is it? Say what you want to about it. That's quite intriguing.
It's been an idea I've had for about 1.5 years. And the inspiration came to me when I was sitting in a talk at a conference focused on semiconductor workforce development. How do we get the next generation of people, young people, middle-aged people, older people, engineers, salesmen, quality people, manufacturing specialists, anybody? How do we get people involved? And as maybe owing to my engineering mind, I went back to first principles. Well, who would be the best people to get involved and have the most passion for a life in semiconductors? Children, right? So let's start exposing children to technology at a young age. This is something we've seen. So many programs around the country get children involved in STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. But now we have a semiconductor industry which powers the entire world that we live in. The reason that we have AI is from advancements in semiconductors. The reasons that we have Teslas that charge faster than 10 years ago, advancements in semiconductors. The reason you and I are speaking over Zoom here, advancements in semiconductors. The list goes on and on. So all these things that young people engage with and definitely embrace more than an older generation do, run off of semiconductor technology. So let's elucidate this at the youngest possible age. Now, to your point, it is a bit tricky to distill quantum physics down to the layman. However,
What age is your audience? Is it the 13-year-old like you were, or is it like the 6-year-old?
it's going to be the more towards the 6-year-old. So
I'm envisioning early. Yeah.
I'm envisioning kindergarten, first grade, second grade reading time. The teacher is reading the semiconductor book to the class, and it's obviously just talking very high level. This is what it is and how it relates to other things in your life. I'm not trying to teach quantum physics to a 6-year-old.
Next book,
maybe. And then there was something I found interesting is that when I looked around, there really wasn't a lot of children's books on this subject. There were a few, but if we want to form a workforce that's going to take this technology to the next level, that's going to take the technology in the United States to the next level, we need to start people young. And I reflect on myself and how, I'm going to say, lucky I was to have had, a little bit of an illuminating path with my mother being involved in computers and just my parents being very supportive in general, with my college career and all that. But let's put a book in someone's hands that might not have known what a semiconductor was, whose parents aren't engineers or involved in IT or doctors or things like that. But they're curious, how can I post to TikTok better, right? Or something like that. So that's the essence. That's what I'm trying to do. And it's really just been trying to carve time out in my life to get this out into the public here.
I totally love that. Well, like I said, we need to take a break. I've been having this fabulous conversation with Dennis Szymanski, and we will be right back. Hey there! Isn't my guest amazing? So glad you joined us today. In this world that often feels disconnected, building community and fostering belonging are essential. That's why I created this podcast, to bring inspiring people to you, to encourage you to create that sense of belonging and community, no matter where you are. If you're being blessed by my guest, and we have some more, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. You know who needs to hear this. Stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. Now, back to our amazing guest. And we are back, belongers, with the fabulous Dennis Szymanski. And as you know, if you've seen my show or listened to my podcast, I have 3 favorite questions I ask each of my guests. And Dennis is going to get to answer his version of those questions. The first one is, what do you consider is your greatest accomplishment?
Well, Dia, I have to say, I spent a lot of time thinking about this question because I did listen to many of your episodes before, so I knew what to expect. And my answer surprised me. I'm going to start there because, as you said in the intro, I found my slice of paradise down here on the coast of North Carolina. I have a lovely woman by my side, an amazing dog sitting down here next to me, and I'm sitting in a home that we both own, which is incredible. So one might think that might be a biggest accomplishment, getting a doctorate in any field. But when I really reflected, it was my time in high school as the marching band president. That was my biggest accomplishment. Now, why? Well, the easy answer is it started something that continued into college, which was I was the marching band president at the University at Albany as well, in their first marching band ever as a school, which was pretty cool. So it kind of set that up.
Yes.
And really just put the cherry on top of an amazing career playing the trumpet as a student, K through 12. Where I'm from, Northport, New York, has a very good pedigree musically. My family grew up there, and all the way back into the 70s and 80s, they always had a phenomenal music program, marching band, all that. I got my name on a vest going back, embroidered with the band presidents from 1970, through today. Absolutely incredible. Something that I remember getting the news that I was selected to be the band president, and I was over the moon. I was absolutely over the moon. But why it's my biggest accomplishment is connecting back to the initial part of this podcast, which was my stutter. Part of the band president's duty was every day to get up on scaffolding, climb up on scaffolding, sat on the 50-yard line of a football field. Now, Northport Tiger Marching Band at that point was 320 kids. That includes cheerleaders, flag line, drum line, wind instruments. 320. Now, not 4 years before that, so I was in my early teens, I was afraid to get up in front of a room to give a book report. And here I am. I elected to audition for the band president role. First vote of confidence in myself. I elected to do that. I wasn't forced like a book report. And the second one was I elected to speak to 320 kids, not just with my voice, through a megaphone. You want to talk about stressful situations, stressful speaking situations, which, being a lifelong stutterer, I've related a lot of my stuttering back to stress, positive and negative. When I reflected, really reflected on the time that I would climb up the ladder and get ready, prepare myself to talk to 320 kids, even right now, as I'm sitting here, I get emotional. I get emotional because 16-year-old Dennis that was doing that into 17 when I graduated high school, he didn't have the tools that 30-year-old Dennis has now. He didn't have the life experience to say, calm down. This isn't a stressful situation, or remember to take a breath, or remember to slow down, or what's the worst that's going to happen if you stutter in front of 320 people? They're going to kill you? Probably not. They're just going to wait another few seconds for you to get your point across. But 16-year-old Dennis didn't have that. Like I said, 16-year-old Dennis was just 4 years removed from shaking in his boots to give a book report. That's why being the marching band president at that time and context in my life is, to this day, still my biggest accomplishment.
I totally can see why you chose that, because it is a great accomplishment for all the reasons that you said. And you belonged in that position. Yes, you did. It was your calling. It was your place. And how much that experience was able to launch you on to all the other accomplishments. You got over that first big hurdle beyond a book report. Well, congratulations. I would be proud of that too. My next question is, what makes you feel like you belong?
What makes me feel like I belong? This one for me as a people person is easy. It's genuine human connection. That's what makes me feel like I belong. Whether that's genuine connection with my partner, right? We don't text each other, we talk face to face, genuine human connection. Whether that's my colleagues, turn my camera on for Zoom or Teams meetings as opposed to having just a blinking emoticon, or ordering takeout. I refuse to use online ordering systems. I will call up to this day, and my girlfriend still makes fun of me. And I say, you know what? I love that genuine human connection. And in addition to just bringing stuttering awareness to the world and all that, something else I want to accomplish with the online platform, with connecting with people like yourself, is to go out and encourage genuine human connection. I think it's something that is potentially getting lost, and I don't want to see that happen, because I don't think that the answer for just Dennis Szymanski to the question of where do you feel like you belong, or what makes you feel like you belong, is genuine human connection. I don't think that's just my answer, right? We are, as human beings, we are social beings by definition. We've developed language, to communicate with one another, even across language, across cultures. We know, for example, this means stop, right? No matter where you are in the world, we can pick these things up just by being genuinely connected at the human level.
Right. And that is the very nature. We were created to live in community.
Yes.
How do you find, or how would you recommend people to find human connection? Or where do you find it? Or talk a little bit about finding that human connection.
It goes back to something you and I were talking about earlier, Dia, and that goes back to finding yourself. You have to find yourself first. You have to connect with yourself first and foremost. That's something my mother always told me when I was dating. Make sure you make yourself happy before you go find someone else. That was the first time I was ever exposed to that concept. And it's only become more and more ubiquitous as I've gotten older throughout my life. And I say that as a preamble to the fact that I recently discovered, for example, that I love Toastmasters. I love talking, all that stuff. But I didn't just get dropped into a Toastmasters club and realize, oh, well, this is cool. I'm going to stay here. No, I had to seek it out. Like so many other things in life, we have to seek out. But why do we seek it out? And in this case, I sought out Toastmasters because I felt like this might be a place where I could find belonging, genuine human connection. And I gave it the college try, and it worked. I've done things, though, where I put myself out there in a similar way, and I didn't find the same type of connection, be it that these people were much more business-oriented than me, and I wanted to take more of a science route, for example, or these people like jazz music, and I liked classical music, right? There's all different things, but notice everything I'm saying is first what I like, what I'm going to then put myself out there for. So I think a lot, and I'm just very guilty of it. I mean, I said I was a chameleon. I am a chameleon. And there was a time in my life where I totally was so much of a chameleon that I lost touch with who I was. So I was doing things and being like, what? Why did I do that? Why did I make that connection? Why did I go to that place? Why did I do that thing? And reflecting now, it was because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I needed, what was going to connect with Dennis first. So yeah, it was a ready, fire, aim situation. We don't want to be in that. We want to be in ready, aim, fire. So what I encourage people, and to continue with that metaphor, get ready with yourself, set yourself, put yourself in a nice environment, something that's comfortable for you, because that will help you aim. Where are you going to target that? And then you'll fire. Maybe you'll find your Toastmasters club.
You're right in that we have to, when we really belong to ourselves and can stand confidently in that, it's almost like you become a magnet for those like-minded that also are looking for belonging. You give them an anchor to belong to. You can't hope to belong to someone and just sit at home all the time. You do have to go out and be open. You may find a place that you belong that surprises you. You weren't expecting it, but you're not going to find it if you don't go out there with it.
And just to add, I mean, since we are on a virtual platform right now, when I say put yourself out there, that can be virtually. If you, for whatever reason, don't want to leave your house or wherever you reside, you could still find community out there on the internet. I mean, that's what we're doing right now.
Exactly.
There's certainly where you can go out to your local Toastmasters club and get that in person. But maybe you have a busy schedule. You're a single mom, you're working a lot, and you're like, wow, I just can't find time. Well, that's okay, right? There's so many things with modern technology that we can find ourselves belonging to communities all across the world, right?
Yeah, thanks to semiconductors. Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
Okay, third question. What is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote now, like many quotes out there, the quote genealogy, if you will, might be a bit murky, but I'm attributing this quote to Albert Einstein, partly because that's what Google says, and partly because I'm a scientist and engineer, and who doesn't love Albert Einstein as a scientist and engineer? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
So talk to us about that. Why is that? What significance does that have for you?
Well, it pervades every single aspect of life, if you really sit and think about it. Sure, let's start with what might be most obvious, which is science and engineering, because he's a scientist, right? If you run the same exact experiment with the same exact conditions over and over and over and over again, what you would hope that you get the same result, or else the scientific method is broken and we're living in absolute chaos.
Exactly the same.
Or you didn't do it exactly the same, and that's proving the point of this quote, right? So
yes.
So, but then think about it in my daily life. I think about it just on a personal level. If I want to make friends with my neighbors and they are introverted people, and I try knocking on their door once, then a week later I try knocking on the door again, then I try knocking on the door a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time, then I try calling them, maybe, throwing rocks at their window like a 90s sitcom, but they don't answer, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, no, I shouldn't be confused, right? Because I didn't really change my approach, but I'm getting the same result. Maybe in that sense, what I could do is write a letter, put it in their mailbox, see what happens, right? A bit more, just a different approach to the same situation. I still want to make friends with my neighbor, but I don't feel insane doing something over and over and over and over again. Something else, two other quotes or things that I live by are, don't reinvent the wheel, and if it's not broken, do not fix it. Kind of in the same vein. That's why I like that quote.
It's an excellent quote. Anything that you want to do, if you want your life to be different, you've got to change some of your habits. And how your life is made up of little bitty choices all along the way, and just make different choices to get different results.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Well, this has been fabulous. But before we close, what final words do you have for the belongers out there listening?
Well, my microphone's died, so I hope that my audio is still good.
I can hear you. Yes.
Fantastic. I want to say that, start off by just plugging the online platform that anybody wants to follow me on. Dr. Denny Eddy, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, got a website coming out. Just posting videos, feel-good content, communication, getting out there. That's that. But what I really want to, personal plug aside, it is, I think, to sum up what we spoke about and the essence of how I try and live my life is I just want everybody out there to know that you are who you are. You are who you are. Let that sink in. How do you feel about that? Whether you feel good about it, indifferent, hopefully you don't feel negative, but I understand. I get up and get in my feelings and feel negative about myself sometimes too. I get that. But I just want to leave this. Don't try and change who you are. Don't try. Embrace it. Embrace it. Coming from a lifelong stutterer who tried to hide his stutter, not be in situations where it could have come out, but has now flipped that on its head. Put myself out there. Speak, maybe even when not spoken to. And it's led me to meet phenomenal people like yourself, Dia. It's led me to meet others, to have the opportunity to share my story, and to have the opportunity to live a life that is aligned with my values and aligned with my morals. And
to belong to so many different things, organizations, people. But the reason I say to embrace it, embrace who you are, is belong to yourself.
Absolutely. And if you weren't a stutterer, all the people that you're helping now you wouldn't have the same impact. I couldn't help them to the degree that you are because that's not what I'm gifted at. Whatever it is about who we are is what we need to be, because there's somebody in the world that needs us to be who we are for them. And if we try to change who we are and not be ourselves, then we're not helping those people in the world that need us.
I think that's incredible. I think that's an incredible sentiment. Doing a disservice to yourself and others if you're not who you are.
Exactly. So Dr. Denny Eddy, I don't see an Eddie anywhere. What is your middle name, Edward or something?
That's it.
Okay.
That's
Dr. Denny Eddy,
Yes.
which is way easier than Szymanski.
Yes.
Dr. Denny Eddy, Dr. Denny Eddy. Look for him. He's got so much to offer, and you can find it. Well, to our fabulous guest, Dr. Denny Eddy, thank you. And to our belongers, thank you for listening. Always remember that you belong. Stay true to yourself. And we'll see you next time on Here Where You Belong podcast. This is Dia Irby signing off. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Here Where You Belong. We hope today's episode has inspired you to embrace the beauty of belonging in your own life. Remember, no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. Join us again next time for more insightful conversations and heartwarming stories. Until then, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember that you belong.